Hey class, thanks for joining us in our case study presentation. Nicole, Ron J, Kieran, and myself, Chase, were tasked with looking at managing employee relations and the case study in relation to that. We will guide you through our study and how we would have handled the situation maybe a little bit differently than Maple Leaf Shoes and how they dealt with it. The introduction, well, I'm sure by now everybody is pretty familiar with Maple Leaf Shoes. They're a medium-sized corporation with branches in Ontario and Manitoba that seems to be haunting our class all semester long with their human resource issues. This time they bring to us some tricky but likely common issues that have happened in their offices. Their new manager, Brittany McPherson, was challenged right away when an employee named Joanne violated company policy by bringing a sexual harassment incident forward to the public and to the Human Rights Commission without first bringing it to her senior management. The company policy has always been, what goes on at the company stays at the company. Brittany then had to deal with Max. Max had worked for the company for several years, but was caught watching pornography at work. While he viewed the pornography outside of normal working hours, he did so while on a business trip, and, to make matters worse, while using a company computer. To cop off this trifecta of human resource issues, there was Paul Bertuzzi. He was a warehouse manager who has also worked with the company for many years. He was made aware of a scheme by some supervisors that involved defrauding the company. Although Paul did not actually commit any of the fraudulent acts himself, he decided not to tell senior management that it was happening. Some of the key mistakes in this case mainly revolve around policies and communication. Joanne knew she was breaking a policy, which gave Maple Leaf Shoes just cause to terminate her. However, it is a policy that likely needs to be adjusted in the future due to its lack of transparency. The corporation lacks policies for internet usage. Max did not realize that there was an issue with his action. A clear policy would have provided some preventative discipline to help discourage him from watching pornography on the company's computer. There should also be a policy or a code of conduct that gives employees the duty to report fraudulent activities or other employees that could harm the company. A conduct around whistleblowing may make employees feel more comfortable with coming forth with the truth. During this presentation, we will cover what issues occurred, suggestions that we think could improve the corporation's employee relationships and prevent these issues from reoccurring. We will also look at providing insight to the decision makers on how maybe they could handle these situations a little bit more effectively. The final decision maker in this case, without a doubt, has to be Brittany McPherson. With great power comes great responsibility, and in this case, Brittany had both of those. As the final decision maker, she was responsible for the day-to-day operations at the facility. She was put in charge to deal with these issues, any issues that may happen, and in this case, did happen. The main issue in this scenario, well, there seems to be many. Arising, they seem to all happen all at once, but the biggest challenge here is for Brittany, who is the HR decision maker. Brittany is finding her manager job challenging as she graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce degree from a well-known university, but she has only taken one course in human resource management and is not completely fluent with the department as it requires timely and correct decisions. It is clear that Brittany does not have the background knowledge or HR experience to correctly handle each situation that is arising. Brittany is unfamiliar on where to start and how to effectively juggle all these problems at once. Although Brittany reads through the HR textbook in her office, it is unclear if she will make the right decision in all of these problems. Brittany has the opportunity here to rise above, seek help where needed, and to overcome these HR obstacles that are put in front of her. The significance of this case, well, here the significance is the value of managing employee relations. Everything the Human Resource Department does affects employee relations, either directly or indirectly. It's important to remember that good human resource leadership is important for retaining current employees, but also attaining new employees. To be further successful in meeting the organization's overall objectives, if Brittany wants to manage the location she is working at successfully, then she'll have to become fluent on how to address issues that could arise in employee relations practices. In the long term, managing employee relations can bring a bundle of major benefits. These benefits include productivity, ensuring the implementation of organizational strategies, reducing employment costs, and helping employees further grow and develop. The core of every business involves managing employee relations to create a safe and enjoyable workplace for everybody. Dimensions that especially require attention to employee relations include employee involvement, employee communication, employee counseling, employee discipline, and also employee rights. When all of these elements are balanced in the workplace by the HR department, it will create an overall better work environment that makes employees feel comfortable and also allows them to do their job more effectively. The case location for this case was Maple Leaf Shoes, and it was in their Winnipeg location. This is where Brittany manages and looks after the day-to-day operations. Reasoning for these issues? Well, Maple Leafs had several separate issues arise. However, they all seem to stem from one common problem. Maple Leaf Shoes had issues with communication through all levels of their business. A large part of this has to do with the employee relations. Through good employee relations comes good employee communication. Many of the issues, such as Paul knowing about fraud and not speaking up, as well as the case with Natalie about sexual harassment, became problems due to the lack of communication, lack of comfort from the employees with talking to management about issues. These issues likely came to be due to the lack of training and awareness, as well as not having clear written guidelines with clear punishments or employee discipline methods for acts deemed undesirable by the company. HR likely should have had more preventative discipline methods and a more extensive training program upon hire and throughout one's career to reinforce these positive actions. How to solve this problem? We all agreed that there is no one-size-fits-all solution for most HR problems, and especially none as complicated as poor communication. However, in the case of Maple Leaf Shoes, they could learn through these events and focus on training in the future, as well as in attempting to start an open line of communication between employees, HR, and management through the means of employee counseling. By talking to each employee who is in trouble or does wrong, HR can better assess the reasoning behind their actions. These talks would help future employees in similar positions feel more secure when talking about issues with work and other coworkers. With proper initial training, communication, and counseling, we could better assess and mitigate any future issues at each level they may develop at. The next few slides will look at the textbook questions that we had and our discussions based on those questions. Question 1 was about Brittany and how she orders the 3 cases. So we'd said how we would order the 3 cases, that without a doubt they're all very important, but we would first start with the sexual harassment case. We agreed that it was really the only clear-cut case where we actually had a policy that was well known. This policy was broken, so it makes it pretty easy to act upon, and also very important as the act of this policy being broken was brought to light and to the news articles and stuff like that. So it puts our company in a negative light, and is one that, depending on how long we take and how well we handle the situation, could be pretty damaging to our company. The second case we looked at would be the Paul Bertuzzi case. Paul did not commit the act of fraud, but we want to fix this issue quickly. Hearing about this case would have us believe that maybe there are a lot of other cases or activities around our company that are going on that could be detrimental to our company that we just don't know about. Encouraging employees to come forward with dishonest behavior sooner would help us mitigate that. Although it's still very important, we would handle the pornography case last. Seeing as there is no policies in check, we would certainly want to create a new one. We should not control what Max does outside of work hours, merely inform of proper company property and time use. Question 2 was, how should Brittany deal with Joanne? What could improve policy and employee communications? We decided that Brittany should look at dismissing Joanne by proving that there was just cause. If the policy was so well known, breaking it warrants punishment. We felt that the company's policy is definitely not perfect, and besides us fixing it, we would implement an open door policy. This procedure would allow the correct actions to be taken, as employees can file formal complaints directly to the Human Resources Department. By following this procedure, employees do not have to worry about being in an awkward work environment with their direct manager. This would allow employees to meet with their supervisor or another team manager to resolve any workplace conflicts. By following these 2 suggestions, the policy on employee communications can be greatly impacted in a positive manner. For question 3, it was what discipline, if any, we would implement on Max. We felt that Max should be counseled privately about his actions. It's kind of a sensitive matter, and we could identify the actions and help Max cope with the situation. Brittany could have also established an EAP, also known as an Employee Assistance Program, that would allow her to better assist Max with his performance at work. Question 4 was develop a company policy on internet usage. Having an internet usage policy helps protect both the employee and the organization. In this Maple Leaf Shoes case, there is no policy that employees are aware of, and it is clear that it is something that the company really needs to be addressed and enforced, since employee Max is visiting undesirable sites, using company property, the computer, and also the internet. In any business, there should be an internet usage policy form that should be read over and signed by every employee, therefore leading to less confusion and keeping everybody on the same page as to what is allowed and what is prohibited. This form should be created by both the HR department and the IT department. These guidelines will help protect employees from content that is inappropriate to browse and at work, and also will help avoid any potential viruses that could come through. And then this on the left is our internet usage policy. It's kind of a template. We would aim to clarify the guidelines and what is deemed as unacceptable behavior by having all employees look at this. Some advantages of internet usage policies are to clarify what constitutes as acceptable use, ensure employees understand who to contact with questions about acceptable use, ensure employees understand the penalties that happen if they misuse the internet, help lessen an organization's spyware and virus infestation rates, provide human resources with signed documentation from each employee that states they agree to these terms and they know these terms. And then it also helps mitigate productivity losses, of course. You may want to pause here if you want to look at the internet usage policy a little bit more, as I'm going to continue. Question 5, do you recommend that Paul Bertuzzi be dismissed? Is there just case for dismissal? We felt that Paul was definitely guilty. Maybe not of fraud, but of negligence. He knew of the supervisor's plan to embezzle money, but he allowed it to continue happening. This would be grounds for dismissal, as his actions, in this case lack of actions, led to the company being taken advantage of. Question 6 is a little bit of a big one. It was, what would be reasonable notice in the event that a court ruled that our organization did not have just cause to terminate Paul's? In the event a court deemed that our organization could not terminate Paul through just cause, we would probably still look to try and get rid of him, but through reasonable notice or possibly compensation in lieu of notice. The court would have deemed that Paul merely knowing about something was not enough to dismiss him. However, as a large corporation constantly facing competitive threats, we would not take the risk of Paul leaking information to our competitors. Each province and case is different, so we would look into the details of this case. First, we would look at the employment standards legislation, which lays out the rough guideline as to what is viewed as reasonable notice. Our textbook talks about compensation, and the generally standard employee receives around 2 weeks per year of service with the company. Supervisors will receive around 3 weeks per year, and managers can get up to a month of year per service. Looking at Paul's specific work history, he was an outstanding employee. He was 44 years old, so re-entering the workforce might start to become a little difficult for him. He was a supervisor making close to $50,000 per year while being employed by Maple Leaf Shoes for 11 years. Paul always had good performance reviews and was continuing to further his education. Paul is definitely not an easy person to get let go. However, we felt that it may be unsafe for our company to keep him around and would be disadvantaged by keeping him. So we would need to offer him a substantial notice to dismiss him. Given the employment standards legislation, it would be easy to offer him the minimum of 3 weeks of notice per year of employment being a supervisor. We're assuming here that Paul has always been a supervisor the full 11 years he was here. This would mean that he would get 33 weeks over 8 months for his substantial notice. This could likely still be argued as Paul was an outstanding employee, so to better suit his positive employment history and age, we would likely give him a full year as reasonable notice. We kept thinking here and we thought this may still not be the best route, so we decided the better option in this case would be to offer Paul a payment in lieu of this reasonable notice. Having someone in a supervisor position for a year that likely feels undervalued and unwanted could be asking for trouble, especially when we worry this employee could leak information that would be very detrimental to the company. The cost to do this, to provide Paul with the payment in lieu of notice, would be his full year salary, or $49,600. Although this is expensive, we felt that it could save the company money in the long run. Question 7. Well, this is our last question, and it's about if we were in Paul's position, would we have reported the scheme to senior management? We all agreed that Paul was in a very difficult position, that it'd be very difficult to tell senior management when you know the consequences to your own employees would likely be pretty severe. However, we all felt that in this situation, we would be able to look past the fact that we were telling our coworkers and doing something that may lead to us not being that well liked by them. We felt that not only was it unwise for the workers to defraud their employers, it was very unwise to tell their supervisor, Paul. Paul did not owe these employees a secrecy and had an obligation to the company to do everything in his power to help the company succeed. And then realistically, There was no outcome where hiding information about fraud could help the company succeed, so Paul should have confided in senior management as soon as he was able to. Well, that's all from us, guys. Thanks for following along, and I hope the rest of your semester is great. Don't forget to answer some of the questions below, the discussion questions. We look forward to seeing your answers, and we'll definitely reply back. Cheers.